So here we have a story taken from The Guardian, or 3 paragraphs taken from The Guardian. I took this straight off the internet yesterday. Okay, so 3 paragraphs here about rainforest loss. Okay, this is from The Guardian, and then the same story from the BBC. We've got 4 paragraphs there, and then it's not exactly the same story, but a similar sort of topic area from The Sun, which is a British tabloid. Okay, so how could we start with this, Victoria? What would be the first stage, do you think?
Yeah, maybe considering style.
Yeah.
The style they are written.
So again, the first time you're doing it, give them the support for this. Okay, so focus on style, syntax, and what do we notice about the 3 Guardian paragraphs, Victoria?
That the complexity in terms of syntax is quite high because there are different subordinate clauses inside the same paragraph.
Exactly. In each of the paragraphs, we have found this. So subordinate clauses basically giving additional unbiased extra information. Okay, the last one is slightly more complex. So Rod Taylor said this was only a partial picture. So we're quite complex sentences here. And as we said, only really providing additional, quite complex, but additional information to what has already been stated. If we move on to the BBC. Oh, sorry, there it is in its entirety. So we can see that structural, syntactic commonality across the 3 paragraphs from this article. Okay. BBC, Victoria, what's the difference here?
Yeah, we see that sentences are shorter than in the previous example, and also the paragraphs are shorter. And in terms of structure, it is more simple. It is simpler and also more accessible for readers as a result. Exactly.
All of these are fairly simple sentences compared to what we saw in The Guardian. Quite short. We do have a little bit more. We have a little bit of punctuation, a little bit of more complexity. And then we move on to The Sun, the last option. What do we notice here, Victoria?
The sentences again are shorter, so again more accessible for readers, and then we will see a difference in terms of language. But I will say that
we'll look at that in a minute. Yeah. Syntactically, these are all. I mean, 1, 2, 3. The first 3 sentences don't even have any punctuation. No, the first 4 sentences. So they are sentence-long paragraphs. They are informative, punchy. Not complex, not even any punctuation, as I said, nor in the last one. The 5th, the penultimate one, we do have a subordinate clause there, providing additional information, slightly less sort of, how could we say, unbiased additional information, but we'll look at that afterwards. So we've had a look at the style and the syntax, the commonalities across the different paragraphs here. We could also have a look at language and tone. So in The Guardian, Victoria, what did we highlight?
We highlighted that the use of adjectives is maybe more academic and sophisticated.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to offer unbiased information as well.
Yeah, pristine tropical rainforests, held significant stores of carbon, a vast array of wildlife. So this is, I mean, this would be accessible by a B2 plus student, I imagine, receptively speaking. Writing, it would be a high level. Receptively, I'd say this is strong B2. The unprecedented fires, a partial picture of there. So again, language-wise, quite academic. Quite academic language being used here. The BBC?
Yeah, the information seems to be more factual because there are fewer adjectives here.
Exactly, not very many adjectives. Again, we saw earlier that syntactically it's not that complex. the language, this would probably be accessible reading-wise to a strong B1 student, I imagine. It's quite simple, quite clear. And then moving on to the sun. What do we notice here, Victoria? Quite a difference in language here.
Yeah, much more emphatic language with examples like drown out, drastic
consequences.
Yeah,
Work of 100 leading experts.
Yeah.
Obviously, exactly 100. It was shed trillions of tons in mass. I mean, even the subordinate clause, that's about 10% of the world's population. It's quite sensationalistic. So we can see language and tone-wise again what characterizes these paragraphs. So so giving your students this a structured way to approach this. Look for this in the different paragraphs. Exactly, Adriana, very emotional. And we are, again, well, once we've identified things between the paragraphs and put them together, we're working again on a global level with the text and on a very detailed look at the language and how language is used. Avoid which one? I don't know. No, not at all, Salvador. We chose these three specifically because something like The Guardian, do you remember at the beginning in that C1 can-do statement, it said serious newspapers? I don't know what serious newspapers mean. The Guardian is available for free online. It's a nice one, and the sort of the level, the complexity and the style and level of the language is probably a little higher, but it's very interesting to show students, especially at this level at C2, how differently language is used. And yes, Salvador, I mean, another great exercise, we'll talk about this later in the writing, a great exercise we were talking about with David actually is when you're focusing on writing, get your students to write detailed plans of the writing they will be doing. And then you can either be really horrible and get them to swap their plans, and they have to, exactly, Simone, thank you, swap their plans and write somebody else's one, or write that in 100 words. Not all sort of tabloid journalism, but some tabloid journalism, it's a very skilled technical writing. And yes, they use very emphatic, very sensationalistic language, but they can have the same effect as a long piece in another newspaper, using colloquial language, using very short, punchy sentences. So at this level, I would say using a combination of these is very useful, and showing your students how to achieve different purposes or the same purpose using language in very different ways, I think is useful. So we did choose the sun intentionally to compare how they achieve these things in different ways. And if you just look at the introduction on each of those, they're wonderful. All of them use language in very different ways. They all achieve their aims, but very differently. And interestingly, I think, what was I looking at? Yeah, I looked at, on Read and Improve, if you just type in C2+, a lot of the material that it chooses is from what some people might consider less serious sources. Again, because especially in the more popular journalism writing, the use of colloquialisms, etc., is much broader. So at C2, like we said at the beginning, one of the most horrible can-do statements was can access any piece of writing, whether it's abstract, colloquial, literary, non-literary. So having exposure to this, I think, is very useful at these higher levels. Or read what